Most people think that if you love staying at home, you're lazy, antisocial, or afraid of life. But psychology tells a very different story. Some of the most thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, and mentally resilient people don't constantly chase crowds, parties, or endless social plans. They find something that many others never do: peace in their own company. The strange part? The more someone enjoys being alone at home, the more society often assumes something must be wrong with them. But what if staying home isn't a weakness? What if it's actually a sign of a mind that craves depth over distraction? In this video, we'll explore the fascinating psychology behind people who genuinely love staying at home. You'll discover why some people recharge in solitude, why their brains process the world differently, and why science suggests that enjoying your own space may reveal surprising strengths. You might even recognize yourself in ways you never expected. So before you assume staying home means missing out on life, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may realize that some people aren't hiding from the world at all. They're simply living in a way that makes them happier. You know that friend who always cancels plans? The one who's sick again, tired again, maybe next time? Yeah, that friend isn't avoiding you. They're protecting something. If you're someone who genuinely gets more excited about a Friday night in pajamas than a Friday night out, welcome. You're about to feel very seen. And today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who love staying at home. The one society calls boring, but science calls something else entirely. Here's the thing. Extroverts recharge by being around people. Their energy comes from the noise, the movement, the chaos. But introverts and people who prefer solitude, they recharge in stillness. Every social interaction, even a fun one, slowly drains their battery, and home is the only charger that actually works. Psychologists call this optimal arousal theory. Some people need more stimulation to feel good. Others need less. It's not laziness or fear. It's just how their nervous system is wired. But there's more going on than just introversion. Some people love staying home because their environment gives them a sense of control they don't get anywhere else. Out there, the world is unpredictable. Loud strangers, last-minute changes, small talk with people who don't care about your answer. But at home, you control the lighting, the noise, the vibe. For people with anxiety or high sensitivity, that control isn't a luxury, it's survival. Here's something wild. Studies show that people who enjoy solitude tend to be more creative, more introspective, and better at problem solving. Staying home isn't doing nothing. It's where the best ideas are born, not in a crowded bar, but in a quiet corner with a book or a thought spiral at 2 a.m. And let's be honest, society romanticizes being out there. The influencers, the party pics, the live your best life culture. But what if your best life is a documentary, some soup, and zero obligations? That's not sad. That's self-awareness. Now, some people stay home for a darker reason. Social anxiety, past trauma, depression that quietly whispers, "What's the point?" And for them, home becomes both a refuge and a cage. So, it's important to know, do you stay home because it fills you up, or because leaving feels too heavy? Because one is peace, the other is hiding. But for those who truly love staying home, they're not missing out. They're just living differently. They find joy in small rituals, the morning coffee routine, the favorite spot on the couch, the way the light hits the room at sunset, things most people rush past. Hit subscribe if you think you're this type. Psychologists say this is called low stimulation preference. These people don't need the world to entertain them. Their inner world is rich enough. So, if you're someone who turns down invitations without guilt, who feels genuinely happy on a solo Saturday, who'd rather rewatch your comfort show than make memories, you're not broken. You're just wired for depth over noise, for peace over performance. Tell me, do you prefer staying home, or do you think we're all just making excuses? And if you want the psychology that most people never hear about themselves, the next video is going to hit you harder than this one. Click it. You'll understand why. Most people think that if you love staying at home, you're lazy, unambitious, or secretly afraid of the world. Friends ask why you don't come out more. Family members tell you that you're wasting your life. Social media constantly reminds you that everyone else seems to be traveling, attending parties, making new friends, and collecting unforgettable experiences. After hearing this enough times, it's easy to wonder if something is actually wrong with you. But psychology paints a completely different picture. The truth is, there are people who genuinely enjoy staying at home, not because they're depressed, lonely, or socially anxious, but because their minds find something there that the outside world rarely provides: peace, control, comfort, mental recovery. And surprisingly, some of the happiest people are those who don't constantly feel the need to be somewhere else. Today, we're exploring the fascinating psychology of people who love staying at home. You'll discover why some people recharge within their own walls, why quiet evenings often feel more rewarding than crowded events, and why science suggests that your favorite place may reveal more about your personality than you realize. As we go deeper, you may recognize yourself in ways you never expected. Let's begin. Have you ever noticed how differently people respond to the exact same invitation? One person immediately says yes, another hesitates. Someone else starts thinking of excuses to stay home. Most people assume this difference comes down to confidence. They believe outgoing people are healthier, happier, and more successful, while people who prefer home simply need to get out more. But personality psychologists have spent decades studying this question, and the results are far more interesting. Every person has a different level of stimulation they naturally enjoy. Some brains thrive on constant activity, others perform best in calm environments. Imagine your mind like a battery. For some people, conversations, parties, shopping malls, and busy offices actually recharge that battery. For others, those same situations slowly drain it. Neither is wrong. They're simply different operating systems. People who love staying at home often have nervous systems that become overloaded much faster. Bright lights, loud conversations, traffic, endless notifications, and constant social interaction all require mental energy. By the time they arrive home, they aren't escaping life. They're recovering from it. This idea explains why staying home often feels deeply satisfying instead of boring. Home removes thousands of tiny decisions your brain normally has to make. You know where everything is. You control the temperature. You choose the noise level. You decide who enters your space. Your brain doesn't have to stay on high alert. Psychologists call this cognitive load. The fewer unnecessary demands placed on your attention, the more mental energy remains for thinking, creativity, and emotional regulation. That's one reason many writers, programmers, artists, designers, musicians, and researchers often enjoy spending long periods at home. They're protecting the mental resources their work depends on. Another fascinating reason people enjoy staying home has nothing to do with avoiding others. It has everything to do with feeling authentic. Think about how many invisible roles you play every day. At work, you're expected to be professional. With friends, you're entertaining. With strangers, you're polite. With family, you're responsible. Without realizing it, you're constantly adjusting your behavior depending on who's around. Psychologists call this self-monitoring. Some people naturally monitor themselves more than others. They're constantly paying attention to facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, and social expectations. While this ability helps maintain relationships, it also consumes enormous amounts of mental energy. Home is often the one place where those invisible performances disappear. You don't have to smile if you don't feel like it. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to explain your silence. You simply exist. For many people, that's incredibly freeing. And this leads to something most people overlook. Being comfortable alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is the painful feeling of lacking meaningful connection. Solitude is the enjoyable experience of spending time with yourself. The outside world often confuses these two experiences. Someone eating dinner alone is assumed to be lonely. Someone reading on a quiet Saturday night is assumed to be missing out. Someone spending weekends at home is assumed to have no social life. But assumptions rarely reflect reality. Research has shown that people who enjoy healthy solitude often experience greater self-awareness. Without constant distraction, they begin noticing their own thoughts more clearly. They recognize emotional patterns. They reflect on conversations. They solve problems more effectively. They discover what actually makes them happy rather than simply following what everyone else is doing. This ability becomes especially valuable in today's world. Modern life rewards constant stimulation. Every spare moment gets filled with scrolling, videos, notifications, messages, advertisements, podcasts, and endless entertainment. Silence has become uncomfortable for many people, yet psychologists have discovered something fascinating. The human brain actually needs periods of quiet. During these moments, your default mode network becomes active. This network helps process memories, organize emotions, imagine the future, and make sense of experiences. In other words, your brain performs some of its most important work when it appears to be doing nothing. People who regularly spend quiet time at home naturally create opportunities for this mental process. That's one reason many of them develop remarkable insight over time. They think they reflect, they connect ideas. Instead of constantly reacting to the outside world, they begin understanding their inner one. Of course, this doesn't mean every homebody automatically becomes wise. Just as constant socializing isn't automatically healthy, neither is constant isolation. The difference lies in intention. Healthy solitude leaves you feeling refreshed. Unhealthy isolation leaves you feeling trapped. One energizes, the other slowly drains. Psychologists often encourage people to ask a simple question. When I'm home, do I feel peaceful or do I feel like I'm hiding? That single question changes everything. Someone who stays home because they genuinely enjoy reading, creating, learning, cooking, relaxing, or spending time with loved ones is having a very different experience from someone staying home because fear prevents them from leaving. The behavior may look identical from the outside, but psychologically, they're completely different. This distinction helps explain why two people can spend an entire weekend at home and have opposite emotional outcomes. One finishes the weekend feeling calm, inspired, and mentally recharged. The other feels restless, anxious, and disconnected. It's not the location that matters, it's the reason behind it. And perhaps that's why the happiest people who love staying at home don't usually feel the need to defend their lifestyle. They aren't trying to convince anyone. They simply know themselves well enough to choose what genuinely restores their energy instead of what merely looks exciting to everyone else. Ironically, that kind of self-awareness is becoming increasingly rare because in a culture that constantly tells us to do more, go more places, meet more people, and stay busier than ever, choosing peace can quietly become an act of confidence. And that confidence often comes from understanding something that many people spend their entire lives searching for. Not every meaningful life is lived in the spotlight. Sometimes, the richest experiences happen in the quiet places where no one else is watching.